bad position. In fact, CDW was telling me about a client that they knew about or whatever that deployed a system, had $200,000 into it, and then they realized that the buildings were connected to Cat 3. So you can imagine the boot storm after the fact. I mean, it didn't happen. So understanding these things is going to be a plus for all of us. So again, my name is Cyrus. I'm the IT director for Ashe County. I'm also president and co-founder of HitsTech or Hit Solutions. And I've already introduced these gentlemen here.
Hey, before you get into it, what I want to do is pass my iPad around. This is our virtual environment at Wayne County. This is what it looks like when you go into it from an iPad or an external device. We're using a Centerx receiver. One of the interesting things on here is we put all the individual applications. So if you want to go in and just use Word or Excel or PowerPoint or something, you can do that. But if you want to go get the full desktop experience, then you would click on XenServer Desktop. And that is a published desktop that looks very similar to XP. And it has all of the applications that are actually published on this desktop here. If you want to go around and just kind of look at that, it's actually logged into our back in the county right now, and I can do anything that I'm doing. I can do anything that I can do at work here or anywhere, and it looks exactly the same, with the exception of when I log in, we have thin client devices in Wayne County, so when I log in there, it automatically goes to a published desktop, and you have all your applications available just like you would in an XP environment. It looks very similar to that. The difference is it's completely locked down. The users can't really do anything to change the environment.
And that's great. If you guys, and please, if you're looking at that and have any questions, definitely feel free to interrupt me, and I'll let these guys figure out what they got to do about interrupting. But definitely feel free to do so. So here's what we're going to do. Here's the topics I brought up. These are the top 10 design problems that people have, and this is from the Centerx Academy. I recently finished up the Integration Architect certification, and so this is the biggest thing that they wanted us to know. So I'm going to talk about each of these points, and I'm going to turn it over to these guys, and they can talk about them and talk about their stuff. So number one, network impact. It's very important for you to evaluate your network and realize what you have on the network on the back end, especially if you've got a bunch of Cat 3 out there. You're going to have to make that assumption beforehand. At Ashe County, we have 10 gigabit backplanes that we put in place from the servers. So our provisioning servers, everything that we have set up is running on the 10 gigabit network. And we have gigabit networks out for the clients. So that was one of the things that we had to do and we had to implement. Profile strategies for us was really difficult because we couldn't determine if we wanted roaming profiles. We had problems with roaming profiles, and we had problems using the Centerx Profile Manager. So it took a lot of trial and error to figure out where profiles were. And we actually settled on using the Centerx Profile Manager so that anybody that logs into these provision desktops can get that same profile, that same look and feel across the board. And that's very important for your end users because the hardest thing for them is change. And if you start throwing something new at them and it feels different, and it looks different, then you're going to have a lot of resistance moving into this thing. So keeping that as transparent as possible is one of the things that helped us the most. Overall, our profiles are probably the most important thing because it requires a lot of storage space to make sure everybody's My Documents and things are there. We had to weed out a lot of things on the network that we didn't know people had. There were tons of music. There were tons of movies. There were tons of, honestly don't know how they got some of this stuff on there. But leave it to the user. They can find a way. You know, pruning all of that was, it was very time consuming. So when you're trying to put your strategy together, understand that you know, you want this thing to be as best as possible, so you're going to put time into the network and understand that, you know, that man hours is very necessary. Because if you don't do that and you start, those profiles are logging in and you've got all this internet cache and all these things being copied back and forth from the local storage on the provision desktop to the storage or to the, you know, back and forth from the profile store, then you're going to have login times that are going to exceed 20, 30 minutes. And you know, the best you want want to keep it under 2 minutes. And that's just, have you guys had any issues with that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's people store just about everything in the program. Prior to virtualizing, we had a good strategy anyways. We only allowed people to have 100 meg in their email and things like that. All the profiles were stored in our servers or on our stands. So when we actually virtualized them, it was almost seamless to the end user because all their profiles are already there. Once you get SAN storage, you're going to have a lot more space. If you don't have a SAN now, that was where we ran into. We didn't have a storage area network when we started, so we went out and purchased one. Of course, you can't virtualize without it. So.
Our SAN was reaching end of life, so we were in kind of a little different scenario. Our SAN was reaching end of life when we were deploying, and so we had performance issues. We had just kind of thrown storage in, thrown into a tray of terabyte drives because we needed more space. Well, that kind of haphazard addition to the SAN over a period of time led to some real performance degradations, not to mention that it was reaching end of life, and the processing didn't keep up with it really. But so we wound up with a whole host of high utilization applications accessing the same head unit in the SAN. So storage, I know he's got at the bottom of the list for High Point at least. We had to move that up significantly because our network was always solid, got fiber pretty much everywhere. And the storage for us was our biggest sticking point. And he mentioned those profiles. The profiles, we hadn't gone down the path that Wayne County had. So we had the same problems, same challenges that Cyrus had. And we're also in a high availability failover to our DR, load balance to our DR as well. So when the users log in, you don't know where they're logging in. Are they logging in on a production side? Are they logging in at DR? You don't know. You honestly shouldn't care. But having those profiles synchronized over the fiber connection, over the 1 meg fiber connection, with the slow SAN was a little bit of a challenge. Now that we've upgraded our net app to ONTAP and head units and FlashCAD and Sasserage, it's getting significantly easier.
Yeah. And storage is, I think he's right. Storage is on the list. When I made the list, I just placed them on there. So we can definitely figure that storage is probably one of your number one concerns overall. And I didn't have a SAN when I started, so I started looking, and it was after I looked at Mr. Chris's over in Henderson County. He had a Compelling, so I went and looked at that thing, and he has NetApp. We chose Compelling, and that's what worked for us. So there are plenty of options out there depending on your budget. That worked, yes.
Are you finding that is a 1 gig network infrastructure okay, or do I need to upgrade? Where does 10 gig fit into that? I mean, what was your experience with that?
For me, 10 gig fit in on the back end because I have 4 servers in the infrastructure, 4 physical servers in infrastructure, and on those 4 servers I have my Exchange servers, my profile management servers, I have file servers, print servers, everything that's running on those. So I needed to make sure that those infrastructure servers were talking to the SAN in the best way possible. So I implemented the 10 gig, and then after I did that, everything else is 1 gig on the front end. So I've got 2 switches in the data center. I actually use Dell 8024Fs, so they're 10 gig switches, and I got them set up with the LAG group, and they're distributed. Like Glenn said, he's got high availability active with his storage and DR, so we have that going on with their switches.
The back end is where all the actions happen. So we're still 1G in the back end because we're waiting for those multi-port 10G switches to come out and not be $1 billion. So once those prices come down a little bit, we're going to be migrating our backbone to 10G. But going out from the core, 3G cellular, Wi-Fi, it almost doesn't matter.
What's your VDI count? What's your number of desktops?
Full desktops in use? Because yeah, that's an odd question. I'll tell you what. When you're doing the desktop as an application, right? It also tends to lend itself to just giving people apps out and not using the full desktop. So I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people using Centerx, using apps. My desktop user count is significantly lower because the group that's doing it is absolutely swamped. And to have them go and migrate some of these profiles, this is a very time-consuming process. So rolling the desktops out hasn't gone as quickly as I'd like it to, for that very reason, because we've got 4 people supporting 1,000 end users and 100 servers, including mail, SharePoint, you know. I mean, they've got the lion's share of the load, and there's only 4 of them. I mean, so they're you know, they're drinking from fire. But so I've only got a couple of hundred people using a full desktop. But like he said, once you get there, it's a dream. I mean, I can log in, I tell the story a lot, I can log in on my daughter's virus-ridden laptop at home, okay, with absolutely zero concern. I log in on her virus-ridden laptop, I get up, there's my background, there's my wedding picture, right, there's all my icons, there's all my data, and I have zero concern. You know, I could be on an iPad, I could be on his iPad. I mean, I saw that the Centerx guys, when we were talking to them, they had thin client laptops. And the one guy looked at the other and goes, oh, how you like that one? That one just came out. Is that one cool? Yeah, that's pretty good. How's that one? Yeah, that's pretty good. Hey, you want to switch? Sure. Well, you know, that sold it right there. When they switched, say, I'll get back to you in a couple days. Do that now. It was so powerful. It was incredible.
We have 115 desktops running on the server farm. And they're spanned across 4 HPs and no, I'm sorry, 5 HPs. And those are all set up so that there's enough room. So if I lose an HP server, I'm still going to be running at full capacity. We just need more licenses, and we're going to play around with using desktop or XenApp desktops. We have not went down that road, but you can have supposedly a lot more users running on XenApp desktops because you can have 4 XenApp servers serving desktops to hundreds of people versus physical license.
And that's one of the big differences. Does everybody kind of know the difference between VDI, a virtual desktop like XenDesktop, and VMware View versus a published desktop? Because a published desktop is, and the user's only actually seeing an image that's on your server, and it's that one image that everybody's seeing. Whereas a VDI solution like XenDesktop or VMware View, you're publishing an actual Windows 7 or a Windows XP or Windows 8 down to the end user, so it looks exactly like it would if they're at home or any other solution. Now, there's a paradigm shift that needs to take place there. The end user does not have to have, in my opinion, because I've experienced this, we've got 1,100 employees, we have 400 thin clients deployed, and we've got around 500 virtualized users right now, and our system is 10 times faster than, I swear. I can log in in our virtual environment inside of our network, and when I click on Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, there is no delay. It's instantaneous. There is no delay at all. You do that with a brand new computer. The only computer I know of that even comes remotely close would be my iMac. I mean my MacBook, the new one, because it's got a flash drive. Even that, I don't think it's as fast as my virtual environment. It's blazing fast because you are just publishing apps. It's not the entire desktop. And if you look at my iPad and you look at the desktop, it looks almost just like a Windows XP desktop, but it's not published down to the end user. That's running off of our high-end servers. So when they're clicking on it, you're utilizing that processing power of that server, not the processing power of a thin client. That thin client is really just there to provide a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, in the connection back into your network. That's essentially what it's doing. So,
Are you mostly XP, Windows 7, or how do you see transitioning to Windows 8?
It's not XP or 7. When you do a published desktop as an app, an application desktop, in VDI, you're actually running the desktop, and it's running in a virtual, like a real VM server, right? That's what a VDI truly is. When you're doing a published desktop, what you're doing is you're getting in the 6 environment. We have a 5 and a 6 environment. We have some 32-bit apps, but our 6 environment is 64-bit. And what you're really giving the users is a 2008 server desktop. That's what it really is, with a Windows 7 whitewash. Okay, so it looks like Windows 7, but it's really old.
We have 2003 server. We haven't migrated to 2008 yet.
Yeah. So it's not really XP7. So when you're talking about 8, what you're talking about is really the next version of server. And you'll give them that desktop. And maybe they'll come out with the same thing, those whitewash for Windows 8 lookalike, the Metro interface or whatever. When you're doing it as a virtual app.
As far as the VDI, though.
Yeah, you can load whatever you want in it.
Okay, but how do you see moving to 8? Is it going to be an issue? Is it going to be tough?
We're not doing that for VDI.
The profiles.
Yeah.
If you have your profiles managed well, then it should be very painless.
Yeah.
We had XP running, and then we built the Windows 7 machines, added the apps. Some apps are loaded in the image, some apps are streamed from XenApp, and we simply gave them, the user, the 7 desktop, and then we gave them a little bit of instruction. Okay, here's your XP, you can use it if you want, here's 7, and they all gradually went to 7 on their own. They tried it out to see if they liked it, they had a fallback, and then after everyone was comfortable, we just removed it from their view, so when they logged in, they only had 1 desktop.
Have you done any testing with 8?
I have not. And because Centerx as of right now does not support it and doesn't work. Or last time I tried it, it didn't work.
Wait till October 26th and it'll be supported.
Right.
Although VDI is much more expensive.
Absolutely.
Significantly more expensive. Like he was saying, you can get 100 and change. They say 200, but really about 150, depending on the power of the server, users on Blade, as opposed to VDI, which you're talking, probably 20. So
Yeah, the infrastructure is going to be considerably different. You're going to have, I'll give you an example. We have 10 servers in our virtual desktop environment supporting 1,000 plus users. Right now we've got probably around 500 or so users that are virtualized, maybe a little bit more. 400 of those using thin clients. And we're not even touching the processor memory on those servers. It's not even putting a dent in it. So that 10 servers is really overkill, but we did that on purpose because if we have failures or anything like that, we don't want the performance to suffer. If we had on VDI and we used XenDesktop, it would have been double that number at least of servers. And anybody ever done any calculations on how much it costs to maintain 20 servers, and the electricity, and the maintenance agreements, and all of those other things that go along with that? It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, it's things you got to manage. It cuts it in half, basically, when you can use
He's
it.
on HP. Where do y'all run on your backend or server?
HP.
HP.
So that infrastructure is
Yeah, we have, on our XenServer, we have HP DL380 G5s. We've had that server farm for over 3 years now. The desktops are G6s, and our DR site, we're actually just setting up. We've got a CX4120 SAN, and we're putting either the G7 or the G8s. I'm not sure which ones yet on the DR side.
We touched on license costs and things like that. How for the VDI solution, how is the Microsoft licensing structure helping or hurting the business side?
Microsoft's barely getting anything out of it, Wayne County. Because, one, I'll tell you why. Because we buy our Microsoft licensing outright. Because when you go to an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, you got to plan on hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then every year you're going to be paying, I don't even know how much. We don't do it. We figured it out, our users, because 95% of our users are not power users. And a lot of our users are they come in, They would go out, you get a rehire and come in and go out. You have a few power users in some of the main departments, but for the most part, people, all they do is they go in and they access Internet Explorer, they go to their state application and they do their work. Or they, they open up email and, once in a year, and believe it, I mean, it's amazing what you see. But the Microsoft licensing, we buy outright, and about every 5 or 6 years, we upgrade. So we just upgraded in 2010. But we own it outright, so we don't have to worry about paying all that extra stuff. Now, Microsoft, if you own an enterprise agreement, you don't have to pay that $100 per device if you're using a Zen Desktop or VMware View, because they'll charge you, I think it's $100, correct?
No, with the EA, it was, I want to say...
With the EA, it's free, but without the EA...
No, not necessarily. It depends on your licensure. Like, so we didn't have the enterprise desktop. All right, what we had was an OS, Office, and it was a bundle, so it gave us SMS licensing and I want to say SharePoint licensing. And they have another tier of desktop licensing that would have that included. So I think it wound up being another $10 for us.
Oh, yeah.
For the virtual desktop license. And that's essentially terminal server license, terminal server client license.
Is there a difference then between the published desktop cost and the VDI cost?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean,
If you publish desktop, you don't have to
so
pay
the Microsoft licensing for the actual.
No, there's no difference from Microsoft's end, but there is a difference from VMware. The VDI license is different than your app license, unless you do you can talk about the licensure decisions as well.
There's, if I heard your question correctly, there's a difference because if you're doing a published desktop, you have Windows Server licenses and terminal server cows, and then including XenApp licenses. So those are your 3 licenses. So if you're doing the actual VDI, or if you're doing full desktops, you're going to have the Windows 7 licenses, or like you said, your EA is in there, and you're going to have the VD licenses for
For data center for the server.
yeah, you have to have the server licenses, but
You gotta have software assurance also on the
Yeah,
device.
that's what you have to have software assurance, but you can do you can pay for it outright the first year, or you can go 3 years. And actually, Joe, he's the CDW rep in the room, so I always go to him when I get those licenses. So, am I right there as far as that goes?
You can do it yearly, you can do it 3 years, and it's not a software service available app, so it's, most customers do it 3 years, so they don't have to worry about it every year.
Yeah, we bust those out 3 years too.
I mean, if you have an iPad or some non-Windows device, you still have that VDA.
Well, because it's on the server, it's the session on the server that you're paying for. The client doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the hell you
Client
do.
does
You can
matter.
stream it to an Android phone,
Client
really.
absolutely does matter.
But you have to have VDA. Once you have
You have to
VDA,
have
But the VDA, yes, but no, with an app, you have the terminal server license from Microsoft.
True, right.
Right.
The stream-
And then the
stream
licensure
video
for the
stuff.
software that you're delivering. And now, the Microsoft licensure is not concurrent. All right, so it's not like I can have 10 versions of Office. However many people are using Office, I gotta have that many licenses.
I've got actually documentation on what it actually costs to virtualize one of our users. And I've got it all broken down. And now, every year the prices change. So every year, you're going to have, a lot of, and what I've seen, the prices have gone down. Our thin clients are about $100 cheaper than they were when we first started. So those prices are going down. But a Wise C10LE, which is what we're using right now, it's a FinOS thin client, $259.61. That's what we pay for that. We pay for a Wise TCX suite for each device. That's $30.93. Citrix Zen Desktop license. We bought, I think, 30 of those. We haven't used any, but we own them. Windows Remote Desktop Cal. You have to have Desktop Cal for every virtual user. $54.25. Now these are initial costs. There's recurring costs. And then I threw in here, just for continuity's sake, a monitor. The same monitor that we would have on a desktop. $149.25 for 9 units. That's what we actually paid. So $727.42 to set up a virtual user that includes Citrix licensing and all that stuff. Now, there's some annual recurring costs that you're going to have. One of them is the TCX suite, $7.50 a year. Citrix Zen Desktop maintenance. For us, it's $37.50 a year, $37.50 a year per device. Windows Remote Desktop CALs, $31.57 a year. Microsoft is more expensive than all the other ones because they don't bring down their prices down in their maintenance much. So it's $76.64 reoccurring for those devices. So I did a 5-year expense to virtualize a user, buying all the equipment, paying for the licenses, everything that we need to do. It's $961.37 for 5 years. But that doesn't include electricity. If you go to electricity, if I look at the desktop, what it costs us to do a desktop, and I used an i5 processor. A desktop, the initial cost at the time that I did this was about $939.89 to include a monitor. So it's a couple $100 more than virtualizing the user. However, desktops are a lot more maintenance. You have to have antivirus on them. You have to maintain them. You have to deploy them. It takes an average for us is 4 hours to deploy a desktop from the time we get it to the time we take it out of the box, to the time we image it, put our antivirus software, all those things, and deploy it to the end user and set it up and get their profile set up on that device. 4 hours. It's under 30 minutes to set up a virtual user and get them up and running. And once they're set up, it's under 5 minutes. And that's just probably the time it takes you to walk over to their desk and plug in their thin client, plug in the network cable.
And what he doesn't mention about the thin client is there's 0 moving parts. I've seen thin clients running when we went to an on-site visit, which is something I highly recommend if you're going down this road that you visit somebody that's doing it. I saw a thin client that was running for 10 years.
Yeah. Now I just want to make a point. The thin client costs about $5.25 a year if it's running 24/7, 365. A desktop will run you about $52 a year if it's running 24/7, 365.
It doesn't break.
Yeah. So that equates for us, I only calculated 800 desktops. And I calculated what I know we're going to be running in thin clients was around 800. So the difference annually for all of our systems, running desktops just in electricity is about $42,000 a year. In thin clients, it's $4,199 a year. So the savings as far as electricity, if you go to a thin client device, is immediate. You're going to instantly start seeing savings in electricity. Not only that, you can't even calculate, they don't produce heat. But very, very little heat. So when you're in a room full of thin clients and you're in a room full of computer systems, there's a big difference in the cooling systems that have to cool that room and all that other stuff. So that kind of snowballs.
I'll make a comment on that one. I talked to a gentleman at University of Baltimore County, University of Baltimore County. They did their engineering department college school. 3 floors, I think it was like 600 machines. Over the weekend, when they came in Monday morning, their temperature dropped from 70 degrees to 63 degrees because those PCs are not heating the building anymore.
And this is the best part, right? Imagine that somebody's PC breaks. Their hard drive goes belly up, right? And you've got to deal with that user. All right? Somebody's thin client breaks. Yeah. I'm seeing it.
I did a 5-year cost for electricity. This is desktops, the red, you can't see this, and the blue is thin clients. The difference is about $25,000 5-year cost versus $144,000. So when you project 5 years, and that's what I highly suggest, anytime you're doing a virtual environment, you'll say, hey, next year we're going to be virtualized, we're going to be doing this, and we're going to do we got a 1-year plan or a 2-year, you're never going to do it in that time unless you got a very small shop. We've got over 1,000 employees, so we got a 5-year plan. One that gives you a lot of cushion. You can play around a lot. You can do a lot of tweaking. You can back off the project and jump in and do another project while you're. And that's what we're doing. We're taking our time. It took us, no kidding, the first 3 years the first 2.5 years, we had deployed about 25 thin clients in a test environment because we had so many problems when we initially set up our XenApp environment. We brought Centerx in, we learned some really cool tricks from them, and we tweaked our environment to where, I mean, it's running really good now, it's very smooth. Then, in the last 6 months, we went from around that 25 to almost 400. So, the 5 years, I got 2 years to go, and I'm not even sweating it now.
What's your user base though?
What's that?
What's your user base? You said? How many thousand users?
We have over 1,000
You have
users.
1,000?
We have 1,100 employees.
And you bought 10 servers to support?
We have 10 servers, HP GL380s and D6s.
The bigger you
We
are,
have 12 servers, but two of them are provisioning servers.
the bigger you are, the faster the ROI. Okay? Our ROI, fully deployed, all right? So if we were to just, wave the magic wand and tomorrow everybody had a thin client with running in Citrix and yada, yada, yada. At that point, fully deployed, our ROI is 13 months. Okay? So everything after the first year and a month is just money being saved.
And you said that 10 servers is like overkill
For our yeah, it's right now, it's overkill for us. Now, we've got a very, very solid infrastructure. All fiber, our SAN, we have all fiber channel drives. All of our high-use software is on fiber channel. And then we have SaaS on some of our, like shared file storage and stuff like that. Yeah, so we have a mixture, but the fiber channel to me made a huge difference.
How did your support personnel respond when you started saying you're not going to do desktop support anymore?
I have some really good staff that what we did was, we did it by department. We started out in child support, child services. And we basically, we told them what we're going to do. We set up their systems, and we told them they're going to be a test environment. We didn't do all of them, but we did the majority of those users. And then, as we ran into problems, we had a direct phone line to my technician that would respond immediately because we knew we had to tweak the system. We couldn't just throw it out there and then walk away and say, oh, okay.
On your technician side.
What's that?
Top of on your technician side, because they may feel threatened that they're not doing desktop support anymore.
My technicians feel
There's
threatened?
still plenty of work for them to do.
No, there's plenty of work. There's plenty of work for them to do. Even now, I'll be quite honest. When I came into our county 4 years ago, I knew I was going to do virtualization. I knew it. I dealt with virtualization when I was on the Air Force side, in the federal government. A very small scale. All of our secure network was Citrix, and it was virtualized. So I had already dealt with it. I knew what I wanted to do when I came in. So when I came into Wayne County and I had 12 staff, I knew that at some point I had one that was not position that wasn't filled. I said, I'm not filling it. I'm going to just see how we do without that position. And I told my staff that. So let's see how we do without this position. Because now I can because I know we're going to be virtualized in a few years. I'm probably not going to need that manning. I don't want to have to hire somebody and say, you know what, I don't need you anymore. So I just didn't fill it. Now, later on down the road, about a year later, after I got into the county, I had a person I had to fire for completely unrelated reasons. I went in and started looking at all of their work, and they weren't doing any work. I held that position. 2 positions unfilled, didn't even put a dent in our ability to handle the work orders. I went to my boss and I said, look, it's $85,000 a year sitting here. For the last 2 years, I haven't filled this position. That's this amount of money. I want at least 50% of that for pay increases so that I can do some reclassifications and give my people the pay that they deserve, because we're going to be virtualized. We're not going to need all these things. We're going to be able to redesign what we're doing. And I did that. I eliminated 2 positions. My boss gave me the money that I wanted. I gave significant pay increases to 2 of my staff, $22,000 increase in 1 year to 2 staff. And then the following year, I gave them another 2-step increase. And I was able to do that because I can show, look, if you weren't paying us for this amount of money, so why, you know, and the pay and benefits. So I was actually able to take existing staff, not affect any of the staff, the other staff, because I eliminated those positions and recouped those funds, gave the majority of it back to the county, but I gave half of it back to my staff. So virtualization allowed me to do that. And I wasn't eliminating people out there. I just didn't fill positions when they came vacant.
But if you don't eliminate or don't have to remove positions, what it does allow you to also do is give the staff that you currently have bigger and better assignments, right? So now you're not, you take the top tier of that desktop support and say, look, you're not doing desktop support anymore. I need you working on SharePoint or Exchange or Citrix or whatever. And it gives them a better career path. It gives them a better feeling about their job. It raises morale.
I took 2 of my positions, I converted them to systems administrators. I created systems admin 1, systems admin 2. So now I have a step. I went from desktop technician to the guys at systems admin 2, and then a systems admin 1. So now I have 2 positions there that didn't exist before that I'm able to reclassify and pay them more money because now they're responsible and taking some heat off of my senior technicians. And they're doing a lot of the lower end systems admin stuff with our servers and stuff. One of the guys, he's doing all the mobile device management now. So he handles all of that stuff. And a year ago, he was a desktop technician. But he's well qualified to do this, so.
You have a question back there?
Yeah, getting back to the Fin clients, is anybody repurposing the existing PCs instead of buying new Fin clients?
That's what we did. We just kept desktops along because once you get them into this environment, again, it doesn't matter what the heck they use. So
That's the easiest way, that's the easiest thing to do. And the only reason why I didn't do that is because I was in a really good position to get the funds to just replace them. Because I had some computers that were, when I started this project, they were 6, 7 years old. Now I have some that are out there that are 10 years old. There was no replacement plan for us. So when I started looking at some of the cost savings, I knew I had the right commissioners in place, I had the right county manager in place, I had some of the right personnel in place. So I could go to them and say, I want to do this. Can you let me do it? And they said, yes, absolutely. 5-year plan, I'm replacing all the desktops, getting rid of them all. And I have some, I drop kick them out the door. 10 years old, nobody's going to use
you
those.
do have to be careful though. If you are repurposing desktops, people will store crap there.
Yep.
Okay? So when that thing finally dies and you go, well, I don't care, your profile's in Centerx. Well, they certainly do. They certainly do. So whenever you can get them moved to a thin client, the faster you can make that happen, the less you have to worry about that, unless you lock it down so that it can't see it.
There you go.
Now,
You
do
can
that.
lock them down.
However, that's across the entire environment. Okay? Now you have, like Cyrus was talking about, people that have music and pictures and yada yada yada. I didn't want to get rid of that, and I didn't want to get rid of the ability for people to use thumb drives. I didn't want to get rid of the, so I didn't want to really get rid of that. So what I did is I allowed them to connect in with a USB storage, right? So they could get a hard drive for $100 and keep all their music and their pictures and everything that they want at their desk, right? And it's not in my environment because you have a quota on your profile. So
We're actually looking at using some hardware for DSS. We've got about 100 desktops that we're going to use straight PhD to the endpoint. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's one of Citrix has got some secret. I mean, it works really well with PC. Gigabit LAN, it works well, but I mean, you can unplug the hard drive and save some power, but we're actually going to use it for the right cache. I mean, it didn't make sense financially to buy things like yet when we can utilize that.
And the thing is, when you take an old desktop like that and you virtualize it, like he's talking about, it's as fast as your fastest computer because you're running all the processing power back in off your server. So that old piece of junk you got there that's 10 years old, you plug it in and boom, just as fast.
And we are in VDI. I mean, we are using virtual desktops. We're using VMware View, and you have these dreams, and this all sounds good, and I'm not saying anything about it, but there are growing pains, because as you start rolling these things out, what you're going to find out is that this department uses this FTP client, and this department uses that FTP client, and this department uses something else, or this one uses this text editor, and this one uses that text editor. So as you grow, as you implement it, you have to have a procedure by which you decide how to standardize what you're loading on your VMware.
This is my and that's
Gives you
true.
an opportunity
This is
to
why I think
standardize.
Citrix is just so far ahead of VMware. VMware has a desktop solution. They have no application solution. I mean, they have nothing close to what Citrix has. So I can publish whatever I want to every single user, because all I gotta do is put it on a different server.
Well,
I can have multiple versions of whatever.
but there's also software that's not virtualization friendly. Adobe is not virtualization friendly. We've ended up having to leave some PCs at the desk level so we can locally install things that do not like to be virtualized. Unless, if you have 5 people who use Adobe,
Yeah,
if you have 5 people
There's
that
a
use
couple of
Adobe.
things, but, there's a couple of things, and I'll give you an example. The cops in the cars,
Yeah.
all right? It's a great example. We haven't gotten that working yet. Not to say that we're not gonna give it the college try, even though it has been done. I mean, OSSI is headquartered in High Point, and we use OSSI software out in the field. So, we have DCI that we have to worry about and all that jazz. So that will actually be our only true VDI desktop. However, you will find that stuff that you get working in this, right? So say if we couldn't get AutoCAD working, not because AutoCAD wouldn't work, but because there were some add-ons in CAD that wouldn't work. If you can use a straight up AutoCAD in this environment, it will be faster than any desktop you can put on their desk.
But if you've got 5 people using AutoCAD and 1,000 people on that VMware View, you can't pay 1,000 licenses for those 5 people to have
Well,
access
yeah,
to
the
AutoCAD.
licensure, I don't know about the licensure on VMware. On Citrix, it's totally different ballgame.
Right, well, on
I
VDI.
can't speak on the VMware side.
And it's more Adobe, or this is a particular case we have, is Adobe has a phone home. So, you get 5 licenses, it's loaded, but when you try to load your VDI client, if you've loaded it on your VDI client, it tries to license 1,000 desktops, and you don't
Yeah,
have it.
well,
So,
we can set that up as a separate app that only has 5 users using it, and it's a little different ballgame. And that's the other nice thing. If you've got software that's concurrent, you'll save software money, right? Because now you don't have to worry about, I've got it installed on 20 machines. Now I only have to worry about, I only got 5 people using it at any given time. Maybe I'll hold on to 6 licenses. I'll limit that app session to 6 licenses and be done with it.
but that's what I'm saying, that's the planning portion, that as you start implementing this, you're gonna find more and more
Wait,
software
you
packages.
got to inventory
You didn't
your
know was out there.
applications, and don't get me wrong, you inventory your applications all you want. When you start deploying this stuff, you'll find some stuff.
You will, absolutely.
You will find some stuff you had no idea about.
Citrix, you're gonna pay for how many users you have concurrently connected. So if you have 1,000 employees, but you never have more than 600 concurrently connected, you're only buying 600 licenses.
Yeah, that's it.
You're not paying for 1,000 licenses.
But that's not a true VDI.
But this is an Adobe thing, I mean, this is not the VMware saying you have to
I
have this new
understand, but
license,
if
it's
you
Adobe.
created an Adobe as an app,
Mhm.
you would only need, if it's a concurrent license and not a seat license,
As a thin app.
right, you would only need however many concurrent users.
Have you ever heard of Smartdraw? Smartdraw, there's a New England accent coming up there. It's an application, this is totally virtualized. It's an application that it's designed to do just about anything. You create flow charts and a million other things with it.
And
We only have 2 licenses for that, but I was able to publish it down and only I can use it. I only have it published to my profile, and one of my other staff has it published to their profile. Nobody else sees it, nobody else can get it. We only have 2 licenses, and that's exactly how we would do it with Adobe if we had it.
Is there anybody else here on the BYOD? Yeah? Okay. This is the only way to do BYOD. Really? Okay, without running into legal issues. This is the only way to do BYOD. So if you're going down that road, you're going down this road whether you want to or not.
You're saying application virtualization is the only way?
Yeah.
Or virtualization period?
Application virtualization, or virtualization anyway, because I'll tell you what, I can get into anything at the city, and there's nothing local.
But you could do BYOD to a VDI.
I could do BYOD to a VDI, but it's gotta be virtualized, you gotta do it. It's the only way to do it, because otherwise you've got information on that device that now you gotta worry about.
In 5 years, there'll probably be barely a desktop out there.
Let
They
me
won't be
ask-
selling desktops like they are now.
Let me add on to
Everything's gonna be mobile, everything's going mobile, everything's going cloud, storage, cloud-based services. You know, that's just the way it is. I can do everything. I can go and remote into a server, lock the user out of Active Directory, I can do whatever I want from here. My senior technicians can go in and manage the entire server farm, the virtual environment from an iPad. So the days of even having a laptop are gonna be going away. We don't buy laptops anymore.
Randy?
I just want to add on to Glenn's point, just because Citrix did release that product, that even if you're not virtualized, you can tunnel back to your own desktop. So if you do have these users with desktops, especially if you have BYOD, and same thing, you want to keep no data on the device that they have, but you're not moving everything into it. Citrix did open it up so that you can run the same client, just the same thing as in desktop, except instead of being virtualized in your data center, you can run it on those PCs that run these funky apps that, you can't put in the data center. So.
Yeah. This is, I mean,
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know we're kind of off topic, we got 10 minutes, we're not off topic, we just got some other things to go on the list, but two things, VMware does have an application, it's ThinApp, is that right? Yeah. ThinApp. So I don't wanna like cut them out and say it's all Citrix, they do have ThinApp. And one thing that Chris was mentioning that I don't think really people grasp was, he was talking about streaming the VHD, streaming the hard drive to his older machines. So basically what he's doing is imagine your physical PCs, taking the hard drives out of them, putting them on the network, and using Centerx Provisioning Server or another provisioning server to stream the entire operating system to them. At that point, the local machine is doing the processing, and you're still using that, and it's not on the server end. So you can still have the physical servers or physical machines running, but they're streaming the disks from the back end. So that's another way you can repurpose these and still get some benefit out of that. That's good for CAD users. That's good for power users. Yeah.
I understand that the advanced features you get out of Citrix or VMware are well worth the cost, but as an initial initiative, you have to buy the remote desktop clients anyway from Microsoft. Is it better to do like a terminal server to start off with and have?
it's a specific license that they're gonna make you buy. So it's not, so I said terminal server only because that's essentially what it is, but
But
it's not.
as a pilot program, is it easy to start up? I mean, I can spin up a terminal server quick.
No, you just grab a handful of those licenses and you can go with it. If you already got the
You've got 4 months with the terminal server
Right.
before you have to buy, so you've got that much time to at least get a pilot out there.
I'll talk to your Microsoft software rep and see if they can give it.
But I think what he's asked to know
Yeah,
is
but why install the layers?
why go Citrix? He's saying why not just do it all terminal?
Well,
Other than-
that's a really good question. So if I were, so we have that too. We have that. We have terminal server infrastructure that we're deploying to some of the police vehicles and stuff, and fire info and things like that to stations that we didn't have hardware. And it's just, it's okay. It's okay. It does what it does, and it does what it does well. But it's not the robust solution. It's not the supportable solution that Citrix is. It's a much easier solution to administer and support in the Citrix environment. It's night and day. Your headache decreases significantly.
You get a lot of management features
Yeah.
wrapped around it that gives you the power to do a lot of things that you normally have to, impact around to do.
Yeah, you can do a poor man's VDI.
Yeah.
Okay? You can do a poor man's VDI, but you don't want to turn your whole organization off to it because of any issues that you're gonna have with it.
Yeah, I think the further down the stack you go, the more XenApp and desktop shines. I mean, it just depends on your needs.
Yeah.
I mean, like as far as single sign-on, USB, redirection, I mean, I think the server 2012 is bringing a lot more features to RDS, but I mean,
6,000, a bunch of cool
a lot of these
stuff.
departments different.
One of your biggest obstacles with just trying to do terminal service is printing.
Right.
But that's really your biggest,
That's when your biggest obstacle is that profiles.
Printing is the nightmare that, I mean,
It's a nightmare through a published desktop. It's as though they were printing right off of their computer.
Right.
They have the same printer schemes in their profile. So whatever they had before, they're going to have in the published desktop environment. Because we ran into that first. We thought we were going to have to buy a third-party printing solution, and we actually bought one, and then we brought Centerx in, and they're like, oh no, if you publish a desktop, you can do
How are you
anything.
handling your mobile users who are going from one thin client to the next, in terms of printing?
It's just retraining them. When you go to another thin client and you log in, you're going to have the same desktop that you're going to print. Just click File Print and then choose the printer again, because it won't keep that at another location. It's not going to keep the default printer set.
No, what we do is publish desktop.
Yeah.
We do
But if you
keep
go
that.
to a different thin client and log in.
Oh, if you want to print to that
To
printer
the
as opposed to,
local printer.
yeah. You are gonna,
I mean, I'm from an educational standpoint, so in a community college where I've got 1,500 machines
Right,
out there
right.
going
Yeah,
to VDI, I've got students who are in lab A in this position, lab B in this position, and I don't want to print out 150 printers there across campus, so I've had to subnet based on classrooms in order to make that profile that that thin client can only see the printer that's geographically
Right.
closest to it. So,
yeah, you have to get a little more creative the more
Yeah.
mobile your users are in the organization. We're not as mobile. We have about 1,500 employees, probably, well, all of them are users, because they have to be for HR and other stuff. But that printing, we didn't have print servers before, and so this brought print servers into the house, and it's something you got to address.
We're basically out of time, but I wanted to touch base. We went through a lot of these things on this list, and for some of you, I want to touch on. Antivirus is something you want to consider, because when you have provision desktops, do you really want to run antivirus? You really don't have to, but you've got to weigh those things. What did you guys do?
We have antivirus, but every device that has a thin client, we don't have to have a license for, because if one of these users goes out to the internet and they get a virus and an email, they just shut their device off, turn it back on, it's gone.
And it's gone. Yeah.
Same with our servers. Our servers, really, that's primarily where we focus on antivirus. Does anybody have Sophos in here? Use Sophos? Sophos is what Cisco uses as their end. That's what we use. Sophos just had the biggest snafu of any antivirus company I've ever seen since I've been around. They actually pushed down some updates to their system, which caused them to think that their antivirus software was a virus, and it quarantined it and prevented users from getting updates. The only way to fix it was to manually go to the device. Well, thank God the 400 plus users we had that were virtualized, we changed it on the server and we were good. It was the end users that we had to go and fix.
And we had asked, just like he said, we have antivirus on the servers. That's what we're protecting. The desktops themselves, the virtual desktops, we don't have antivirus on them because, as every day that passes and every time they release new definitions, those things, we start updating those definitions. You'd have to do a lot more maintenance to keep it on there and to keep it maintained.
That is one advantage I'll say VM has over Citrix, though, is that you can run the antivirus on the back end, on the server side for all the
Yes,
desktops.
you can.
Citrix hasn't come up with that.
Yeah, that's very true. And we know of people that have went from XenServer to VMware just for that reason.
But one thing, anybody that's really thinking about doing this, or even if you're in the process of doing it, because you know you're going to run into issues, go into other counties and cities and look and see what they're doing. Because that's what I did. I went to the first site visit I did, I think it was in Wake or one of the school systems. And their thin clients had been out there 9 years. They looked as new as the day they put them out there in the desks. 9 years old. They had all their applications published. They were published. They were using Citrix. That was my first.
Something like
that. That was my first look at Citrix, and I was amazed that they published them across all of the school systems. So, and the other thing is, I went to Jacksonville. They're doing it completely different than we're doing it. But we looked at their infrastructure. We looked at how they were doing things. We asked them questions. We spent the day down there. So it's really beneficial to do that, because once you know who that go-to person is in that county or city, then when you run into issues like, hey, we're running into this issue. Do you know, how did you handle this? Oh yeah, I have documentation on that.
Yeah, support group. Yeah. talk to your software vendor. If you go on VMware, talk to the VMware guy. If you go on Citrix, talk to the Citrix guy. Have them give you some places to go visit. And go visit them, spend time with them, build a relationship with those people.
If I could just add one thing, all these points, and there's probably some additional ones here, but, once you get down to the desktop level, it's easy to virtualize servers. When you get down to the desktop level, there's lots of complexities when you look at NetScaler and connecting in from the outside the mobile devices.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I mean, it's best to work with a consultant to get your solid foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you can get a consultant, get one. It's not something that you
Can you
generally
imagine
want to learn on your
Citrix
own and
book
deploy.
or, VMware guide that you can get for any of this? It's
We used Slate.
for a lot of that.
They had some really great VMware, not VMware, sorry, Citrix support that we liked. Your company does a bunch of this
Working
stuff.
with these people, I mean, there's so many important pieces from the beginning. You want to have a solid foundation.
Yeah, get a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, we are, you guys are welcome to stay. We'll keep them coming in or whatever, but it is 11. We are back up at 4, so if some of you guys want to come back, we can get through some of these, or if you guys want to come up and see us up here, we can answer any questions.
Yeah, and if anybody wants my phone number, or even you guys just find with you, you want to give us a call, you want to do a site visit,
We just have, we have 450 VDIs and 5 people who need a full suite. We try to come out there, and it doesn't come out. Your phone's home no matter what you do, so the first 5 people